Here we go, everyone. It's 2:30 p.m. It's a Wednesday afternoon, and you're watching Innovation Fika with me, Donny, here live from Stockholm, Sweden. KTH, the biggest tech and the best tech university in Sweden, in the world, of course, probably the best. No, we know. Anyway, my name is Donny. Every Wednesday afternoon, 2:30 p.m., I go live with my Innovation Fika, Innovation Coffee Break. Fika in Swedish is a coffee break. So I spend 30 minutes in this studio, or in the one upstairs, speaking to interesting people about interesting things, ideas, tech, and hopefully getting something for everyone as well to learn in these sessions as well. That's kind of the idea with this, that to meet interesting people that you get to meet as well. I am also, don't forget that all of my written content that I tend to write more or less every day is on Medium. So go to Medium, Donny S. Ligonis, and find my 500 posts so far there about inspiration and innovation, entrepreneurship and startups and leadership. And then, of course, all of these recordings, this is actually the 91st episode of my Innovation Fika. All of the recordings are on YouTube, and everybody is now watching on YouTube today. By the way, everybody on YouTube, please add in the comments who you are, where you're from, and just say hi to everyone, because I know that we have a lot of people signing up today. Almost 100 people signed up. So, but without further ado, I will now introduce today's guest. Episode 91 of my Innovation Fika with my dear friend, Ricky Patel, PhD. Welcome to the studio.
Hi, thanks, Donny. Pleasure to be here. Exciting.
And you know, this is so cool because one, it's the first Innovation Fika of the year, 2023. So we're opening the year. Two, you're an amazing person, of course. And then three, it's your birthday today. It is Ricky's birthday today. We timed it. It is so cool. And a happy birthday, Ricky, there from Yuval Ackerman as well. Yuval, good to see you as well. Wonderful to see you. Actually, she was on episode 90, a really good episode just before Christmas with Yuval about ethical email marketing. So check that one out on YouTube. It's a really good episode. Hi, Tom, as well from KTH, and Chris from KTH. Today, we're talking to Ricky about, well, the headline is why PhDs make such good founders. That's the whole idea here. And Elena Hoffer and Ryan Williams, happy birthday. Thank you very much. So see, comments are flooding in here. We're talking to Ricky about PhDs and founders, but let's start as we always start, with me asking the guest. So, Ricky, who are you and what do you do?
So firstly, thank you for the birthday wishes to everybody. So I am Ricky Patel. I'm an ex-academic and founder and CEO now of Point Science Analytics. So I did a PhD in clinical neuroscience and research in motor neuron disease and dementia, and then stepped away and founded a startup. So Point Science Analytics produce bullet point reports on biotechs. And the main problem here is biotechs are on the rise, but who's breaking them down for investors, life science recruiters, and consultants? And that's what we do, a PhD-backed startup to bring science to the point.
Okay, so you aggregate biotech information and deliver it in bullet point format.
Correct. Yeah, completely, Donny. I mean, we're the Google it generation, right? We're the Instagram reel, TikTok watching, how to bake a cake in 30 seconds, and we want to see start to finish. When we have information, we want it now. Yeah. The problem is science is complicated, and how do we all understand this in our various fields to provide value to these biotechs? And what we do is produce these reports as a resource tool to flick through on a phone and on an iPad, to use countless times in meetings to gain better understanding and insights.
Yeah. So how do you bake a cake in 30 seconds?
Well, this is the golden question. I've made it in a mug. I have made it in a mug, but it took 3 minutes and it wasn't that great, so I don't recommend it.
Oh, okay. I actually had one of my, you know, I've had like 1,000 business ideas, not a day, but all of these crazy ideas. We all have all of these crazy ideas. And one of my favorite crazy ideas was actually the USB muffin maker. And it was, and it was like this. I had this idea. I have a small device, right, that you actually connect. This about yay big, and they connected it to your USB port, right, and it could generate heat. And then you had like these Nespresso pods with ready mixed muffin mix that you sort of put on or in the device, and then you clicked on, and it sort of baked an instant muffin by your computer.
Oh wow. Okay. I don't know what to make of that.
That was just, one of the thousands of ideas. And anyway, just jump straight into the actual subject here today. Why PhD makes great founders. I mean, you've been an academic, and you're still an academic. Once an academic, almost an academic, and then now you're transitioning into the startup world. We actually met online on LinkedIn in the whole sort of founders Sunday group, actually, where with you being a founder there as well. But just how about the transition between, what's the big differences between being a PhD academic and being a founder? If we start with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think as a founder, you have to zoom out. So the way I would describe it is, as a founder, you look through a telescope at the stars. As a PhD, you look through the microscope at the single cell. And you have such in-depth knowledge about one thing that you actually realize you know nothing else at all. And I say that in a sparse sense, because then when I zoomed out and I started to look through the telescope, there was this like wealth of knowledge and understanding yet to be consumed. So yeah, that's probably the best way I would articulate it.
Mm-hmm. I like that one. I like that a lot, actually, because you wear 100 hats as a founder, especially if you're a solo founder now, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Then you wear all of the hats yourself. I mean, every single one. So you have to sort of zoom out as well. And I think that was really, really good. But what do you feel then, that the time that you spent getting the PhD, what was, any generic skill sets that sort of directly sort of can transfer to being a founder? What was that? You go into, thank God I have a PhD because this has helped me do this and this.
I think the unrelenting ability to constantly ask why, and the resilience with failure. So anybody that's worked in a lab will know the majority of your experiments will fail, and fail catastrophically time and time again. I had instances in my PhD where my neurons in the incubator were just dying for 6 to 7 weeks. I lost 6 months of data, which was accidentally deleted, and had to redo experiments for another month. As a founder now, I have this inbuilt resilience and constantly saying, why is this happening? Why is this happening? And understanding more of it, which when I wear all these various hats as a founder, so one day I'm on Twitter, for example, or I'm on LinkedIn, I'm trying to reach out to clients. And then another day I'm having a Zoom call about in-depth biotech science. And so there's all these different hats that chop and change. And so that's probably the greatest thing, that during my PhD, it was a case of immense failure and then the resilience to pick yourself up again and again, but ask, why did this happen and how can I be better? That was quite the pivotal moment. Yeah.
That's also really interesting, because I work with PhDs here at the Innovation Office. I mean, we help PhDs start their own business, and that's kind of what we do here as well. So I meet you and your peers here in my daily work, and I think that's really interesting, because in research you don't really consider it a failure. You don't say, "Oh, that experiment didn't work, I quit." That's kind of how it's kind of ingrained in the research methodology of actually trying and trying again. So I completely on board with that analogy as well, definitely. And another thing that I feel when it comes to the moving from academia or as a PhD into startup founderism is that when you're in research, you're kind of used to applying for research grants and getting the projects going and everything like that. And when I work with early stage founders who are academics, they kind of shy away from, I don't know anything about startups. I don't know anything about raising money. I don't know anything about, but you've been asking for project and research money for the last 5 years. That's what you do. You're the perfect startup founder, because that's sort of also ingrained in what you've been doing, because you have to sort of secure your own funding, in not all cases, but in many cases. Have you recognized that as well? The whole sort of idea of actually making it.
Yeah, so it's important to note that I didn't formally apply for anything in academia in terms of pots of money, but my supervisors were very open in terms of meetings and saying they would break down agendas like, I'm writing this grant, it got a reviewer comment or X, Y, and Z. And so I saw the process of that ask, the value proposition was in there. And these are all translatable skills as a founder, but more to the point, presenting. So in academia, you present a lot of data, heavy amounts of data, very complex. Now as a founder, I'm seeing that skill that I had of presenting and articulating complex information, well, I'm just simplifying it and it's more of a story. So it's more like my overview of my thesis, but it was actually, fortunately, I had really great supervisors who went through this process and documented their day-to-day tasks as well, because as a PhD candidate, the experiments I'm doing is completely different to a tenured professor applying for these large pots of money. And it was nice to see this process in action.
And then on a more sort of humble note, when you said, okay, now I'm suddenly a startup founder, you realized one day that you looked yourself in the mirror and you said, wow, I'm a founder. What was it that you felt? I have no idea how this works. I mean, what was like the biggest sort of gap did you feel? Was there any gap in sort of skill sets?
In terms of skill sets, I think they were only to be amplified now. In terms of knowledge, so it's important to know, when I left academia, I worked in a lab. I came into the founders world. I didn't know what B2B was, B2C, SaaS. So in my mind, in my world, these were protein interactions or gene pathways. So I would have to Google this. And I was like, business to business. I was like, oh my word, okay. So that's not an immunoprecipitation of two proteins and you're pulling a protein, something complex, basically. So I'm someone who gained this knowledge. And how did I gain that? Well, I started to follow the right people. The sources of information are out there on LinkedIn. And there's great sources of information out there from great people in sales, people who have raised countless amounts of cash in terms of capital for their business, other great founders and other great ex-academics who have moved into the field. So studying that added to the knowledge, but it's still asking why, that quest for more and more knowledge.
I think that brings us into the whole sort of LinkedIn question thing as well, because I know for a fact, since I've been following you as well now for quite some time on LinkedIn, if you ask, you actually get answers on LinkedIn. Yeah. I mean, people are actually very generous with, if you are a likable person, people will help you. And if you aren't afraid of asking for help, people will actually help you. So, being active on LinkedIn as a early stage founder is very beneficiary. I know. I mean, please comment on that as well, because I know that you've been very active on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I mean, during the time before founding, what I did was I studied LinkedIn a little bit. So I followed creators. I saw, how do they structure posts? What do they do? Why are they writing a certain way? And then I began writing. And if I go back to my first few posts, I mean, barely any engagement, if any at all. Maybe somebody liked it, maybe somebody commented. But it's that persistence and that drive to want to know, right, what do I bring? Then when I started to find my feet, it generates a bit more curiosity amongst myself and people that I'm engaging with. And then I see people who I engage with, and I go, actually, you do this. Well, let me ask, any chance of a call? We can have a coffee over Zoom and we can just have a chat. And you begin to understand their story. And in that, you see the value you can provide to someone and the value they can provide to you. And that's how I began to build relationships. Because the thing is, when you're in a lab as a scientist, and I learned this the hard way when beginning my client outreach, in the lab, if I have this new dish, which is better to grow cells on, and I give it a colleague because they're doing the same thing, I'll go, look, use this because it will save you time, it's cheaper, and it's better. They will go, okay, fine. And they'll take it and the problem's solved. When you try and sell to customers, you can't go, hey, I've got this great report. It'll save you time. It's easier. It's better. You should buy it. The first thing people say is either they ghost you and don't reply, or they'll just look at your profile and go like, wait, who are you, by the way? So you need to build relationships. You need to be human, right? Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I mean, all of this is, I mean, everybody online, please ask your questions now. You know, we're live online, so you can do Q&A as well. Lots of good people online as well. I can just say one of them is, of course, our dear friend Yuval, who we had here. Happy birthday, Ricky. We follow her as well on LinkedIn. But Ricky, LinkedIn, I know for a fact that you've actually started something for PhDs. So something like Elena Hoffer here from Karolinska in Stockholm, she could actually join up as well. And you've started something on LinkedIn for PhDs, haven't you?
Yes, so I started the PhD Pack, which is a group for currently enrolled PhD candidates and those that have graduated with a PhD. And the emphasis was, when I was doing my PhD, who do I turn to outside of academia or other institutes who can support me, who I can ask problems with if I don't feel comfortable talking to my supervisors or even any of my colleagues in the department, but also to understand what lies outside of academia. What careers can I go into as a PhD holder? Like, do I have to be defined by this label of research scientist? And as it's come together, many PhDs have seen that they all face and feel the same problems. It's just when a PhD is a very lonely process, and this kind of breaks the shackles of that loneliness aspect. And it has a community of PhDs that come together and they support each other. And there's various individuals in there. There's people who have just started their PhD and began the journey. There are people in there who have finished their PhD 20 years ago and have several companies, and all are willing to join and wanting to help each other because they've been in that position and they want to break that chain. And that was completely my goal, having been there and felt that.
I think I have an image of that there. Look, the PhD Pack. This is the actual the group header. The PhD Pack on LinkedIn. Everybody here is going to, or are one, is one. Prepositions. Going to be one, has been one. PhD Pack on LinkedIn, and this is actually 384 members, and this is like only 1 or 2 weeks in, right?
Yeah. So it's not a long time at all. I was individually messaging people. So I was connecting with the PhDs, messaging them saying, hey, I've got this group that I've made to connect PhDs together from all around the world. Would you like to join? And then I thought, this needs to kind of change. How can I be efficient? Because I'm getting busier and busier. And that leads me on to every Saturday at 1:30 p.m. GMT time, I, on my profile, hold a PhD networking event as a post.
Okay, so every Saturday at 1 p.m. GMT.
Yeah, 1:30 p.m. Yeah.
1:30 p.m. Okay, cool. PhD Pack. And of course, here a question from Yuval. Do you have to be a PhD to join?
So that one I've had a lot of stick about from a lot of people. And it's important to say yes because of the niche. So it has to be a currently enrolled PhD candidate or somebody who has graduated with their PhD. I have had a lot of people who are searching for a PhD. And at the minute, that's not the aim of the group. There is scope for that to change in time as it grows. But the posts every Saturday, anybody who's searching for a PhD, they're more than welcome to comment, because you never know who reads that post. There could be a tenured professor or an institute that reads it and goes, oh, I like this background, which then the LinkedIn profile of the individual becomes very important.
But that's actually also really, that's like a premium thing there. So on Saturdays, you have the open for all thing, and then you have the group, which is for PhD. I like that a lot. Very good, very good. It's 10 to 3 here. This is like the world's fastest half an hour. I mean, seriously, it's the world's fastest 30 minutes. And we never leave without, of course, going through some top 3 tips. And we've mentioned most of it as we've been talking about here. But we do actually have, for summary's sake, we do actually have Ricky's top 3 tips here. We mentioned tip number 1, which is find your footing on LinkedIn. You want to elaborate a bit on that one?
Yeah, get started, and you will find your feet as you go along. Study great writers, people who are producing content. I mean, Yuval is one person whose posts I read on a regular basis. Like, what are they doing differently? What did they write today compared to last week or last month? Have they changed anything? But begin. As soon as you begin to accumulate data. Data then can be evaluated and reformed and changed to become better. Because then who you are now, 6 months down the line, who you are in terms of writing then will be completely different. And you'll create value. And that's the greatest thing. You will help people without even realizing that you're helping people, because your knowledge is something very unique that you have, and the world needs to know about it.
Yeah, wonderful. And tip number 2, learn to ask for help.
Yeah, so this is probably the most difficult thing. I struggled with this for decades. And there's so many layers to it. It's like an onion. But the fundamental core is, if you have the feeling that you're unsure about something, dare to try and just ask someone. Begin by asking someone you're comfortable talking with, hey, I'm not sure how to write on LinkedIn, or should I pursue this degree? What job should I go for? And then extend from there. But the one thing I would say is, if you message people on LinkedIn, genuinely asking for some form of help or understanding or a question, they will respond. You'd be very, very surprised. And at worst, you don't get a response. Either way, in my mind, I win. I get an answer either way.
Yeah. I mean, so many things that you just said are so important to think of. And when it comes to just how you reach out to people and how you ask for help as well. And people are actually very generous in responding, in my opinion as well. If you come across as a likable person with an honest question of asking for help, you most often get it as well. Definitely. Tip number 3, all I know is all I know.
Yeah, so this came and stemmed from me understanding that I have a doctor of philosophy, and philosophy is the art of thinking, learning, and understanding more. So prior to this live, I came in with the mindset of all I know is all I know. Now, my ability to know more and information be presented to me is also my ability to accept or reject this. And so if you go into everything with an open mind, with a growth mindset, as they say, both in the professional and personal aspect, you'll grow and you'll do better things and greater things. And this will cascade onwards to those around you, those interacting with you electronically, and those who are physically with you as well, in terms of your personal family and friends. It's something that is a deep-rooted philosophy into myself and the people I come into contact with, just because I always want to go on and learn more. So the philosophy I read about Stoicism, they say memento mori, which is all things must die. And that's very one side of the coin, because physically we are born to die. However, cognitively we are born to grow. And that is until the end of time.
Again, I'm just nodding here, and it's so much of what you say has parts that we could probably spend another 30 minutes on separately. But we're getting some questions in here as well. Let's see, from Tom here. What's the most challenging aspect of being a sole founder, in your opinion?
It's the many hats. I think the most challenging aspect is also the most fulfilling and enjoyable, because the different hats I have to put on and the different amounts of knowledge bases I have to try and cover is probably the most challenging. And another aspect, I'd say equally aligned to that, is managing time, which I'm learning very, very well. So dedicating how much time I do to one thing, and then I might pick up my phone to message someone, and 10 minutes has passed. Like, why has that happened? Like, wait a minute, 10 minutes could be writing one more cold email and sending it out to a potential client. So yeah, it's about keeping yourself disciplined and rooted, as well as wearing all the hats.
Indeed. I personally, I actually plan in my calendar when I have to, when I have really important things that I have to do, like write this report or whatever, I actually put it as a calendar booking, as a meeting in my calendar to, all right, now I have this half an hour, I really do this focused. Otherwise, it's sort of, I'm doing all of these things. And as I you say, it's a messaging here and an email there. I'll do some report writing here, and you're all mixed up. I think it's different for all people, but I think it's important to find your way forward and how you want to actually organize yourself. But being a sole founder as well, sorry for just rambling on here. Don't forget, everyone, the Founders Sunday group, where we met, Ricky, me and Ricky, the first time we met. I think it was through the Founders Sunday group on LinkedIn. Every Sunday we have like a networking thread on one of the hosts' profiles, and then every Friday we do a live Zoom call where we either do some pitching or we do some knowledge sharing with the group. And it's over 1,000 members now in that group. It's a really cool community. And that's how we met. And I remember we actually had one of those Zoom calls. I mean, you, didn't you? I don't know who reached out to you, but we had a call, you and me, over coffee.
Yeah, I remember I reached out to you and I said, Donny, look, I haven't been able to chat with you. Any chance of some time? And you were like, yeah, sure. Look, drop something in my calendar. Let's have a chat. And then we had the call. And I remember by the end, this was before the founders' coffee call on the Friday. So it's like 11:30 a.m. and the founders' coffee is at 12 o'clock. In the last 5 minutes, you said something. You gave me a piece of advice, which just blew my mind. And I remember messaging you after because it was ticking away again and again and again. And I was like, I've never even thought of that. Like, so for that entire call, it was my mind was just so focused. And then straight away the founders' coffee call, and then there was more knowledge. So by the end of like an hour and a half, I was so drained but full of knowledge that I was writing so many things down. And it just goes to show, like, if you don't ask, you'll never know.
And I think it's, again, coming back to what we've been talking about, and the generic sort of skill sets that you've been practicing in research and moving them over to the founder situation where it's try again, and because we're doing experiments, that's what we're doing, to find out something, and not, just because it didn't work this time doesn't mean that we can't change something and make it work next time. I think that is super, super important. And asking for help, find your footing on LinkedIn, write to people, ask them for 15 minutes of their day. And most people will actually happily give it to you. It's, wonderful open community actually on LinkedIn.
Yeah, it is. It truly is. The one thing I would say is to people, have like a clear photo of yourself. Set up your profile as like a landing page. It doesn't matter if you've got 50,000 connections and followers, or you have just started with 3 or 4 people, but have that photo. Let people see that you're a human being. Otherwise, they would just see it's a lurker account, somebody who just flicks through. That entices people to actually want to respond to you because they know it's a human being who just genuinely wants a helping hand.
Yeah. That's super important. I mean, when I did a call with Tara before Christmas as well, another well-known person in the community. We talked about building your brand on LinkedIn, and one of the things that she emphasized was, have some kind of a strategy, be intentional, be very clear with who you are, and show who you are. And make sure that you have a landing page, because LinkedIn is, when they search for your name, but for any reason, LinkedIn will come up as one of the first hits on Google, and they'll go to LinkedIn and they'll say, okay, who is this person? And that has to be you, and nothing you set up 10 years ago with a fake account or a fake photo or whatever. It has to be you today. So I think that's super important. It is 14:59. It's 1 minute to 3. It's the world's fastest half an hour. We want to thank everybody who is online with us today. Here's another one, Mohammed. Happy birthday, Ricky. Lots of these, by the way. Here's another one. Happy birthday. And Elena, happy birthday. Wonderful. Ryan, happy birthday. Wonderful. Christopher, happy birthday. And Sanjay here. Happy birthday, bro. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. It's Ricky's birthday, if you hadn't understood that yet. So this is episode 91, Innovation Fika, with me, Donny, and my dear friend Ricky Patel, all about why you should first become a PhD and then a founder. So time well spent. No, for all PhDs listening, I hope it's been an inspirational half an hour as well. Reach out to Ricky on LinkedIn, connect with him, ask him for advice, join his PhD pack group on LinkedIn as well. And I'll see you, everyone else. I'll see you, of course, next week again, Wednesday afternoon, 2:30 p.m. for my next Innovation Fika. And for now, I will say thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. And have a great afternoon, everyone. Thanks, Ricky.
Thank you. Bye-bye.